5 days before my wedding, I stood in the Harborview Hotel in Boston and searched the seating chart 3 times before I found my own name. Emma Carter. It was printed on a small ivory card at a table in the farthest corner of the ballroom, beside the fire exit and directly behind a wide support column. If I actually sat there during the reception, I would barely be able to see my fiancé. The seat that should have belonged to the bride was in the center of the room. The hotel had originally designed a sweetheart table for Ethan and me. Just 2 chairs side by side, beneath an arch of white roses and candlelight. Now the sweetheart table was gone. In its place stood a 6-person head table. Ethan Whitmore sat in the center. His mother, Margaret, was on his left. And on his right was Claire Bennett. The remaining seats had been assigned to members of the Whitmore family. There was no place for me. The venue manager held the chart with both hands, clearly wishing she could disappear behind it. "Ms. Carter, this is the final version Ms. Bennett approved yesterday. Mr. Whitmore authorized her to confirm last-minute changes on his behalf. Would you like us to revise anything?" Before I could answer, Ethan said, "No. It's fine." He did not even look at the chart. Claire stood beside him, pale and delicate, one hand curled around the sleeve of his jacket. "Ethan, maybe I should sit farther away," she said softly. "Emma might be uncomfortable." Ethan patted her hand. "You just moved back from London. You barely know anyone here anymore. You'll be more comfortable beside me." Margaret smiled at me as though she were explaining something to a difficult child. "You and Ethan will have every day together after the wedding. Claire lost both her parents. We are the closest thing she has to family. Surely you can give her a few hours." I looked down at the chart. Apparently, becoming a Whitmore meant learning to surrender my place before I had even joined the family. "Who asked you to remove the sweetheart table?" I asked the manager. She glanced at Ethan and said nothing. Claire hurried to answer. "I only thought a table for 2 looked lonely. A wedding should bring the people closest to you together. It was just a suggestion." "So you put yourself beside the groom and the bride behind a column?" Her eyes filled immediately. "I didn't know where your card was placed. That must have been a staff mistake." Ethan frowned. "Emma, it's a seat. You don't need to interrogate her in front of everyone." I looked at him. "Where do you think the bride should sit?" He gave a short, impatient laugh. "You'll be beside me during the ceremony. Does it really matter where you eat dinner?" That was when I understood. As long as I appeared in a white dress and said the right words at the altar, Ethan believed I had fulfilled my role. Whether I was respected before or after those vows did not matter. We continued the final walkthrough and menu sign-off. Halfway through, I excused myself and walked toward the water station at the end of the corridor. Before I pushed open the door, I heard Ethan's assistant speaking on the phone. "Mr. Whitmore, the seating has been changed according to Ms. Bennett's instructions." Ms. Carter saw it. "Should we restore the sweetheart table?" There was a pause. Then the assistant lowered his voice. "Understood. Ms. Carter is easygoing. She won't make a real scene. We'll continue prioritizing Ms. Bennett's comfort." I stood outside the door and remembered every time Ethan had used a different phrase to say the same thing. At our engagement party, several partners from Whitmore Capital came over to congratulate us. Ethan sent me away to help Margaret greet relatives. "Your family," he had said. "You don't need all the attention." At a Christmas benefit at the Museum of Fine Arts, he gave the opening dance he had promised me to Claire because she had just returned from London and seemed unhappy. "You don't mind," he said. "You understand her." At Margaret's birthday luncheon, I had spent a month finding a rare first edition she wanted. Claire arrived late with a scarf. Ethan asked me to wait until the end of lunch to give Margaret my gift so I would not steal Claire's moment. "You're the mature one," he said. "Family. Understanding. Mature." They all meant the same thing. Whenever someone had to be placed last, it would be me. I took out my phone and emailed the hotel. Ethan and I had jointly signed the venue and catering contract, so canceling the entire reception required both of us. But the florist, photographer, gown designer, guest gifts, stationery, and visual production had all been contracted through my wedding design studio. I had paid those deposits myself. I wrote one clear instruction. Suspend every service authorized by Emma Carter and ever after weddings. My name, photographs, and designs may not be used without renewed written consent. Then I press send. When I returned to the private dining room, Claire was sitting at the head of the table while Margaret pushed a bowl of soup toward her. Your stomach is sensitive. Eat something first. The dinner menu lay open in front of Ethan. More than half of the dishes I had approved were crossed out. I had a severe shellfish allergy. Ethan knew that. 7 years earlier, when I had my first reaction, he carried me into the emergency room and stayed beside my bed all night. As long as I'm with you, he had promised, no one will ever forget what can hurt you. Now crab bisque had been added because it was Claire's favorite. She gave a delicate cough. Emma, are you upset? If this is about the table, I can sit in the back. She did not move. Margaret frowned. Claire, stop blaming yourself. Emma isn't that petty. Ethan set down his fork. Claire just came back from London. She has no immediate family. What is wrong with making her feel included? What about me? I asked. The room went quiet. Ethan looked genuinely confused. I repeated the question. This is my wedding. What am I supposed to be here? Margaret's expression hardened. You aren't even married yet, and you're already keeping score about who matters more? Claire stood, eyes shining. This is all my fault. I won't attend. I don't want you fighting because of me. She reached for her purse. Ethan immediately stopped her. Then he turned to me, his voice cold. Emma, enough. I laughed once. Not because anything was funny. It was simply the sound disappointment made when there was nowhere left for it to go. Canceling the sweetheart table, changing the seating, changing the menu, those were all Claire's ideas, weren't they? His eyes shifted. Who told you that? The important question was not what Claire had done. It was how I had found out. I nodded. Then keep taking care of her. I placed my phone on the table. I have suspended every wedding service contracted through me. Ethan's face changed. You did what? Margaret shot to her feet. Emma, have you lost your mind? Claire dropped her spoon into the bowl with a sharp clink. Is this because of me? Ethan, I'll leave right now. He did not look at her. He stared at me. You're threatening me with the wedding? No, I said. I just realized I don't want to be a guest at my own wedding. Ethan pulled me into the corridor so hard that his fingers left a red ring around my wrist. He saw it. For 1 second, his expression softened. Then he looked away. You're making this humiliating. Who was being humiliated when the bride was put at the last table? He forced his voice lower. Claire has no family. Sitting beside us gives her security. And what about my dignity? He was silent for 2 seconds. You're about to become my wife. Do you really need a chair to prove your importance? There it was again. After the wedding. Later. In the future. He would make it up to me eventually. We would have plenty of time. I would have the title of wife, so I should accept every smaller loss along the way. I looked at the silver cuff links on his shirt. I had given them to him for his birthday. Claire once called them ordinary, and he had not worn them for months. For one foolish second, I almost decided the cuff links meant he still remembered me. Then the dining room door opened. Claire stood there with red eyes. Ethan, Margaret has a headache. Can you come inside? He turned immediately. What are you going to do about the vendors? I asked. He stopped. Don't play games with something this serious. I'm not playing. He faced me again. What exactly do you want? Do you want me to throw Claire out in front of everyone? Make my mother apologize? I want my wedding to feel like my wedding. For a moment, I thought he might finally say he was sorry. Instead, he said, you're emotional. The wedding will continue. I'll have someone review the seating. From the doorway, Claire whispered, maybe I really shouldn't come. Then Emma won't be angry. Ethan's patience snapped. Enough. But he said it to me. I stopped arguing. A place I had to beg for was no longer a place I wanted. At the front desk, I signed the suspension notices for every service under my contract. The venue manager warned me that several deposits were non-refundable. The amount represented 3 years of savings. Ethan had insisted that the Whitmores could pay for everything, but I had wanted to contribute. I had believed that if I paid for part of the wedding and designed it with my own hands, some part of it would truly belong to me. I signed anyway. Behind me, Ethan said, do you really have to take this far? I turned. Claire was standing behind him, wrapped in his jacket, the same jacket I had ironed that morning. I handed the documents back to the manager. "You told your assistant I was too easygoing to cause a problem," I said. "Consider this the first time I have disappointed you." That night, our planner, Olivia, sent me the final production schedule. The file was titled, "Bennett Approved Version." I stared at the words before opening it. The first page showed the welcome screen. Ethan stood in the center. Claire held his arm, smiling brightly. I was on the other side, half cropped out, like someone added after the photograph had already been finished. Olivia messaged me almost immediately. Claire said this photo included all the important people. Ethan approved it. I typed back, "Where is my bridal portrait?" Several minutes passed. Claire said a portrait of you alone looked too empty. She removed it from the slideshow. I kept scrolling. After the ceremony, there was a new tribute called "A Special Member of the Family." Claire's name appeared underneath. The handmade chocolates I had chosen as favors had been replaced with the candles Claire preferred. The song from Ethan's and my first date had been changed to the song Claire posted on Instagram the day she returned to Boston. Several investors from Whitmore Capital and directors from the Whitmore Foundation had been moved to tables near Claire. A note said the arrangement would help Ms. Bennett meet key guests. Another line item charged Claire's dress fittings and hotel suite to the Whitmore family account. She had not come to attend my wedding. She was using it to re-enter Ethan's life and Boston society. And Ethan knew. When he came home that night, I had already packed my suitcase. He smelled faintly of bourbon. When he saw me awake, he frowned. "You reviewed the schedule?" I pushed the tablet toward him. "Whose wedding is this?" He barely glanced at it. "Their photographs, Emma. Stop turning everything into a crisis." My bridal portrait was removed. "We can take another one later." Our song was replaced. "Claire has been struggling since she came back. She likes that song. Let her have one thing." "Why are your investors seated around her?" He hesitated. "She lived abroad for years. She needs to rebuild her network in Boston." "At my wedding? We're all going to be family. There is no reason to divide everything so sharply." I stared at the man I had loved for 7 years and felt as if I were seeing a stranger. "Do you think that as long as I put on a white dress and stand beside you at the altar, nothing else matters?" He was quiet for a moment. "We need to get through the wedding. Partners, investors, foundation directors, they have all confirmed. We cannot embarrass everyone over details." So the wedding belonged to Whitmore Capital. It belonged to Margaret's place in Boston's charity circles. It belonged to Claire's attempt to rebuild her social life. It belonged to everyone except the bride. I removed my engagement ring and placed it on the tablet. The small metallic sound seemed louder than it should have. Ethan's face darkened. "What does that mean?" "The wedding is canceled. The engagement is over." He looked at me as though I had made a childish joke. "Because of a seat?" "Not because of the seat. Because you knew I was being pushed aside and expected me to accept it." He reached for the ring as I stood. "I don't have time for a breakup performance." "Good." I pulled my suitcase toward the door. The Back Bay townhouse belonged to a Whitmore family trust. I had no property claim and wanted none. My clothes, books, and work materials were already packed. Ethan blocked the doorway. "The wedding is in 5 days. What am I supposed to tell the guests?" Even then, his first concern was how he would explain me to other people. Tell them the bride refused to give her wedding to Claire. His jaw tightened. "Do you have to sound so cruel?" "Cruel? You removed me from the sweetheart table, erased my photographs, and let another woman approve my wedding. What would you call that?" "I'll change everything back." "It doesn't matter anymore." "Then what do you want?" "Nothing." The word brought an unexpected calm. Ethan looked furious. "Don't regret this." I opened the door. "My greatest regret is that I waited until today to leave." He did not follow me to the elevator. The ring remained on the tablet, a small star that had finally lost its meaning. I returned to the small apartment I had bought in Cambridge before Ethan and I were engaged. It had been empty for almost 2 years. A thin layer of dust covered the shoes by the door. When I moved into the Whitmore townhouse, Ethan said Cambridge was inconvenient for his office in the financial district. I boxed up my favorite books, my sketches, and my coffee machine and took only what fit into his life. I had believed marriage meant building a new life together. Instead, I had packed away my own life so I could live inside his. My phone vibrated constantly. Margaret sent a long voice message. This wedding is not a private matter between you and Ethan. Whitmore Capital's partners, foundation directors, and friends of this family have all accepted. If you cancel now, how are we supposed to explain it? Claire wrote next. I'm sorry. You can have the sweetheart table back. We can restore your photographs. Please don't leave Ethan because of me. You can have it back. As though my place had ever belonged to her. Ethan's message was the shortest. The car will pick you up for your gown fitting at 10 tomorrow. No apology. No explanation. He still believed I was having a temporary fit. By morning, I would swallow the humiliation, return, and clean up the consequences for everyone else. I turned off my phone and opened the curtains. The city was still lit in the hours before dawn. I sat on the floor and began opening the boxes I had stored away. At the bottom of one, I found an old business card. Ever After Weddings. Emma Carter, Creative Director. 3 years earlier, my friend Sophie and I had founded the studio together. At our busiest, we designed 6 weddings a month. We worked through nights, ate dinner from paper cartons, and still woke up excited. Then Ethan told me his wife did not need to spend every weekend running around other people's weddings. Margaret said event planning was not an appropriate long-term career for the future Mrs. Whitmore. Little by little, I handed my clients to Sophie. I had planned to leave the business completely after the wedding. I had been so focused on becoming Ethan's wife that I had almost lost Emma Carter. At 10 the next morning, a black Whitmore SUV stopped outside my building. I did not go downstairs. At 10:05, Ethan called. How long are you planning to keep this up? I was answering an email from a former client. I'm not keeping anything up. The car is waiting. Send it away. You have a gown fitting. Claire already seems comfortable trying on white dresses for my wedding. There was a pause. Claire is Claire. You are you. There is nothing between us. I set down my mouse. A woman who means nothing to you can change my seat, my photographs, my music, and my guest list. The woman you plan to marry cannot even say no. Those are small things. To you. Not to me. So you're canceling a wedding over small things? Yes. His voice hardened. You have 2 days. If you don't come back, the event will continue without your vendors. What event are you holding without a bride? He paused. You'll come back. Then he ended the call. I stared at the dark screen and finally understood what he was betting on. Not my love. My fear. He believed I could not abandon 7 years, 3 years of planning, thousands of dollars in deposits, and the judgment of 200 guests. He believed I would rather be humiliated than admit I had chosen the wrong man. He believed I would not let the wedding become a public disaster. He had forgotten that I was not the person who turned it into one. That afternoon, Olivia asked to meet me at a coffee shop near Copley Square. The moment she sat down, she pushed a folder across the table. I'm sorry, she said. There are records I think you have a right to see. Inside were emails, Slack messages, and expense requests between Claire and the planning team. At first, Claire had only asked to move her seat closer to Ethan. Then she claimed Margaret needed her at the head table because of her health. Finally, she eliminated the sweetheart table entirely and moved me to the back of the room. When a coordinator warned that only the couple could approve core changes, Claire replied, Ethan will not refuse me. Emma will not end a 7-year relationship over something this small. She repeatedly asked where the Whitmore Capital investors and foundation directors would be seated. She requested places near them because she wanted natural opportunities to connect. One expense request charged her gown fittings and hotel suite to the Whitmore family. Her own credit card had been declined twice. Then Olivia opened an audio file. Claire accidentally posted this in the vendor channel. She deleted it, but I downloaded it first. 2 other vendors heard the entire message. Claire's voice filled the space between us, gentle and perfectly clear. The wedding is the one thing Emma cares about most. If we push her a little at a time, she'll get angry and leave on her own. The Whitmores have invited too many partners, investors, and foundation directors to cancel the event. Once her place is empty, who else would stand beside Ethan? It would happen naturally. When the recording ended, only the coffee shop music remained. Olivia looked sick. After she deleted it, she messaged everyone and told us to forget what we heard. We tried to confirm the changes with Ethan. He said the final decisions should follow Claire's instructions. He wrote that you would all be family soon and there was no need to separate responsibilities. I closed the folder. Claire had planned to force me out. But the truth did not make Ethan innocent. She had entered my wedding one step at a time because he opened every door for her. I backed up the files and contacted an attorney. She handled the joint venue deposit, my belongings in the Back Bay townhouse, and the licenses covering my name, photographs, and designs. There was no legal document ending the engagement. I did not need Ethan's permission or a court's approval to refuse to marry him. The attorney's letter stated 3 things. I would not attend the wedding. My name, image, and creative work could no longer be used to promote the event. All future discussion about contracts, expenses, and property would go through counsel. That afternoon, Sophie arrived at my apartment. She hugged me before I could say anything. You finally came back. My throat tightened. Did you always know I would regret leaving the studio? I didn't know Claire would be this bad, she said. But I knew Ethan wasn't worth losing yourself for. She opened her laptop and showed me a presentation. A boutique hotel is holding its annual bridal showcase next month. I can't finish it alone. Are you coming back? On the screen was a blank design board. For the first time in days, the emptiness did not frighten me. It looked like possibility. I'm coming back. My hand trembled when I picked up the stylus, but after I drew the first line, the old certainty returned. For years, I had believed my greatest talent was creating the perfect wedding for Ethan and me. I had forgotten that what I truly knew how to do was take someone's hope and give it shape, light, color, and meaning. 3 days before the scheduled wedding, Margaret came to my apartment. She sat in my living room with a rigid back and an expression of controlled fury. You canceled every vendor? I suspended the services contracted and paid for by me. The flowers, photography, gown, favors, and production design were all under your company. Without them, what remains? The ballroom, alcohol, catering, and guest list the Whitmores paid for. Her voice rose. You know foundation directors and Ethan's business partners will be there. You are deliberately humiliating this family. I am taking back my work and my name. 7 years, she said. You are throwing away 7 years because Claire sat at a table once. Mrs. Whitmore. Since the engagement, she had insisted I call her Margaret. The formal name made her expression tighten. 7 years do not excuse the damage, I said. 7 years are how I know exactly whom Ethan chooses whenever someone must give something up. She frowned. Claire and Ethan grew up together. She lost her parents. What is wrong with helping her? Helping her and allowing her to replace the bride are not the same thing. No one replaced you. You were still going to wear the gown. I looked at her. So in your mind, as long as you handed me a dress at the end, I should have been grateful. For once, she had no answer. After a moment, her tone softened. We'll restore the sweetheart table. Your photographs can go back. Claire will sit elsewhere. Have the wedding first. You and Ethan can discuss the rest later. Later. The word that had swallowed 7 years of my life. There is no later, I said. She stood. A man like Ethan will not wait forever. When you calm down, you may discover the opportunity is gone. After the door closed, I returned to my design work. Once, that threat would have terrified me. I had believed leaving Ethan meant I would never find a man with his family, education, or money again. Now I understood that a better life did not have to arrive in the form of another man. It could begin with becoming whole again. 2 days before the wedding, Claire posted a photograph on Instagram. She wore an ivory evening gown and stood in front of the Harborview's floor-to-ceiling windows. Some places are worth waiting for. Eventually, what is meant for you becomes yours. Mutual friends immediately asked whether she was getting married. Claire did not deny it. She replied with a shy face emoji. Sophie wanted to expose her in the comments. Let her post, I said. You're not angry? I'm furious. I saved a screenshot. But I want to see how far Ethan lets her go. That evening, Ethan came to my apartment for the first time. I did not let him inside. Say what you came to say. He stood in the hallway with dark circles under his eyes. Was it necessary to send a lawyer's letter to my company? Do you want every employee to know our private business? It went to you and the person handling the contracts. I restored the sweetheart table. The welcome screen will be redone. Claire will no longer participate. What else do you want? He spoke quickly, as if he had made a historic sacrifice. Why is Claire no longer participating? I asked. Because you objected. So the problem is still that I objected. He frowned. Isn't it? I was suddenly too tired to argue. Ethan, the problem was never where Claire sat. The problem was that every time someone had to step aside, you chose me. Her parents are dead. Mine are alive, so I cannot be hurt? That isn't what I meant. Then what did you mean? He said nothing. You knew I loved you, I continued. You knew I had invested 7 years. You knew I would be afraid to leave. So whenever someone had to sacrifice something, you chose me because I was the safest person to disappoint. Something in his expression finally cracked. I never intended to hurt you. You did not have to intend it. You kept doing it. He placed one hand against the door. I'll wait for you at the hotel. I am not coming to marry you. You spent years planning this wedding. You cannot truly walk away from it. I met his eyes. I'm not walking away from the wedding. I'm walking away from you. Then I closed the door. 10 minutes later, the hallway was finally silent. The next morning, my attorney formally reminded Ethan not to appear at my home or workplace. From that point on, all contact concerned only contracts and property. The day before the wedding, the Harborview manager called me. Ethan had paid the remaining venue and catering balance. The Whitmores intended to keep the reception. They had told guests only that the schedule had changed. Mr. Whitmore still believes you will appear tomorrow, the manager said carefully. But Ms. Bennett asked to use the bridal suite and requested the backup gown you left at the hotel. She is not an authorized contact. We need your permission. I tightened my grip on the phone. You do not have it. No one touches my gown or personal property. The manager agreed immediately. Half an hour later, Olivia sent another message. Margaret had rented a separate hospitality suite. Olivia had seen Claire carry an ivory dress inside. She had also asked staff to place her beside Ethan at the reception. Claire had never wanted only my seat. She wanted the entire space I would leave behind. At 11 that night, Ethan sent one final message. I'll be waiting at the hotel tomorrow at 3. I did not answer. At 2:30 the next afternoon, I went to the Harborview. Not to get married. I went to make certain no one continued using my name to present a Whitmore family event as my wedding. I wore a sharply tailored white suit. Sophie walked beside me. Olivia and my attorney followed. Cars lined the hotel entrance. The giant welcome screen still showed engagement photographs of Ethan and me, with our names in gold beneath them. My attorney asked the hotel to turn it off. The manager, who had already received my written revocation, ordered it removed immediately. Guests stood in the ceremony foyer holding champagne. The doors to the ceremony room were still closed. The wedding had been scheduled to begin at 3. A woman I recognized from the Whitmore Foundation approached me with a smile. The bride isn't dressed yet? There is no wedding today, I said. Her smile disappeared. Through the open doors to the adjoining ballroom, I could see the Whitmore's hurried replacement decor. My white flowers, photographs, and lighting design were gone. Burgundy fabric and gold candles filled the space instead. The 6-person head table remained in the center. Claire's name card was still beside Ethan's chair. Then the hospitality suite door opened. Claire stepped out in an ivory gown so pale it was almost bridal. Pearls were pinned through her hair. Margaret followed, bending to straighten the back of her skirt. That single image explained more than every email in Olivia's folder. I had not misunderstood Claire. She had never intended to step aside. Ethan saw me first. The tension left his face for one brief second, and he hurried toward me. I knew you'd come. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. I didn't come to marry you. His hand remained suspended between us. Margaret approached. The ceremony begins in 20 minutes. Go upstairs, change, and we can still keep the schedule. I looked at Claire. It seems someone already dressed for my role. Margaret's expression froze. Claire immediately shook her head. Emma, you misunderstand. Margaret asked me to help receive guests in case you were late. This is a formal event. That's why I'm wearing ivory. I almost smiled. You kept the seat beside Ethan. You asked for my backup gown. You arranged business contacts around yourself. If I had not appeared, were you planning to stand beside him at the altar too? Her eyes filled. I never wanted that. Then you won't mind everyone hearing what you did want. At my request, the venue manager invited the waiting guests into the ballroom. My attorney had already explained that the event was continuing to use my identity and creative work, and that I had the right to clarify that no marriage would take place. Some guests sat. Others remained standing near the back. Confusion moved through the room in whispers. Olivia connected her laptop to the ballroom screen. Ethan's face tightened. Emma, what are you doing? Telling the people who still believe they were invited to my wedding why the bride will not be appearing. The screen lit up. First came the altered seating chart, with my name behind the column and Claire beside the groom. Then the welcome photograph of Claire on Ethan's arm and my body half cropped out. Then the Slack message ordering my bridal portrait removed. Then the emails arranging Whitmore Capital investors and foundation directors around Claire. Finally, the request charging her gown fittings and hotel suite to the Whitmore family account. The ballroom became steadily quieter. Claire's face lost all color. Those are ordinary planning conversations, she said. Why are you humiliating me in front of everyone? I did not answer. Olivia played the audio file. Claire's voice carried through the speakers. The wedding is the one thing Emma cares about most. If we push her a little at a time, she'll get angry and leave on her own. The Whitmores have invited too many partners, investors, and foundation directors to cancel the event. Once her place is empty, who else would stand beside Ethan? It would happen naturally. Every face in the room turned toward her. Claire's lips began to tremble. Ethan stared at her. You said that. No. She shook her head wildly. It's edited. They're setting me up. Olivia stepped forward. It is the original file Ms. Bennett posted to the vendor channel. I downloaded it before she deleted it, and 2 other vendors heard the complete message. Counsel verified the timestamp and file data. We also removed unrelated private information from the documents shown today. Claire stepped backward and struck a chair. Margaret looked stunned. You told me Emma did not want to manage the final details, she said. You said she asked you to help. Tears spilled down Claire's cheeks. I only wanted a family. She turned toward Ethan. We grew up together. I waited for you for years. I know you better than anyone. Why was she the one who got to stand beside you? A low murmur spread through the ballroom. Ethan looked at her as if he were seeing her clearly for the first time. You changed the wedding on purpose to drive her away? She chose to leave. Claire shouted. If she really trusted you, she would not cancel everything over a chair and a few photographs. Ethan, she has never loved you the way I do. I felt strangely calm. You're wrong, I said. I stayed because I trusted him. I excused him because I loved him. I did that for 7 years. Then I looked at Ethan. But this wedding did not end only because of Claire. His eyes flickered. Emma. She could change the seating because you approved it. She could remove my photographs because you agreed. She could walk into this hotel wearing ivory because you and your family kept preparing a place for her. I spoke slowly so there would be no misunderstanding. Claire manipulated me. You enabled her. Neither of you is innocent. The color drained from Ethan's face. I didn't know she would take it this far. You didn't know she wanted to replace me, I said. But you always knew I was being hurt. You simply decided a little pain was acceptable as long as I stayed quiet. He had no answer. My attorney addressed the manager and the guests. Ms. Carter has revoked permission to use her name, photographs, and designs. The Whitmore family may continue this gathering as a private reception, but it is not connected to Ms. Carter and no wedding ceremony will occur. I faced the room. I'm sorry you were not told earlier. My engagement to Ethan ended 5 days ago. Margaret stepped forward, panic replacing anger. This could have been discussed privately. Did you have to do this in front of directors and business partners? I looked at her. When I had no place at my own wedding, None of you were concerned about my humiliation. Now that I have stated the facts out loud, suddenly humiliation matters. Her face turned red. Ethan caught my wrist. Don't leave. For the first time in 5 days, he sounded less angry than afraid. I looked at his hand. Let go. His fingers loosened, but he remained in front of me. We can plan another wedding. Everything will be your decision. Claire will never be part of our lives again. Behind him, Claire stopped crying. I almost felt sorry for how little he still understood. I don't want a wedding that becomes mine only after I fight everyone for it. Then tell me what you want. I wanted a man who would protect my place without needing to be threatened with losing me. His hand fell completely. I turned and walked out of the ballroom. Behind me, Margaret began demanding answers from Claire. Guests whispered. Chairs shifted. I did not look back. That was no longer my story. Outside, sunlight fell across the hotel steps. Sophie asked, "Are you okay?" I considered the question. No, I said honestly. But I will be. 7 years did not disappear because I finally walked away. The good memories had been real. Ethan had once carried me into an emergency room. He had once known how I took my coffee and which side of the bed I preferred. But I no longer used yesterday's tenderness to excuse today's harm. After the failed wedding, Ethan came to my studio once. The receptionist did not let him pass the lobby. That afternoon, a long letter arrived through our attorneys. For the first time, he did not call me impulsive. He did not demand that I return. He wrote that he had reread every email and message. He finally understood that Claire had not suddenly stepped into our relationship. Every time she moved forward, he had first asked me to move back. He made Claire leave the Whitmore property, stopped paying her expenses, and agreed to cover the remaining venue losses. My belongings were returned to Cambridge. At the end of the letter, he wrote, I believed you would never leave, so I never counted how many times I asked you to disappear for someone else. I gave the letter to my attorney and did not respond. I had waited years for Ethan to understand what he had done. But some answers arrived too late to change the ending. They are only answers. During the financial settlement, my attorney learned that Claire's investment in London had failed and that she owed several private lenders. Her interest in Whitmore Capital's investors and the foundation board had not been purely social. She needed money, connections, and a family willing to support her. That explained her urgency. It did not excuse Ethan or Margaret. Claire had used them. They had knowingly used my patience. Both things were true. I put my energy back into ever after weddings. For the boutique hotel's bridal showcase, I chose a theme called the main character. There was no groom in the main image. No castle. No diamond ring. Only a woman standing at the end of a long table surrounded by flowers, light, and colors she had chosen for herself. The campaign line read, Love should not squeeze you into someone else's life. It should let you stand at the center of your own. The showcase received more inquiries than any event Sophie and I had produced before. It was held in the same Harborview ballroom where my wedding had been scheduled. The hotel set a sweetheart table in the center for the final display. I placed the bride's name card in front of the right-hand chair myself. The venue manager smiled. Ms. Carter, does the seating look right this time? I smiled back. The bride should always have her own place. 6 months later, Ever After Weddings moved into a larger office. Sophie framed my old business card and placed it beside my desk. If you ever try to quit for a man again, she said, I will personally throw you out of this office. I handed her a coffee. You won't have to. The following spring, I finished coordinating a wedding at another Boston hotel. I was leaving through a side entrance with a bouquet the couple had given me when I saw Ethan coming out of a business event. It was the first time we had truly faced each other since the day at the Harborview. He stopped several feet away. I heard you're going to Paris for International Bridal Design Week. I leave next week. He nodded. Congratulations. Thank you. The distance between us no longer felt cruel. It felt correct. After a moment, he asked, if I had never given Claire the seat beside me, would we have gotten married? I looked at him. Maybe. Hope moved across his face before I continued. But that doesn't mean we would have been happy. The sweetheart table had only been the final piece. What ended us was every time Ethan put me last, and every time I told myself to endure it a little longer. He stepped aside. Take care, Emma. You too. I walked down the steps with the flowers in my arms and did not look back. I no longer waited for anyone to return my name to the sweetheart table. The moment I walked away from that wedding, I had already taken my place at the center of my own life.